allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Joe Pinto, absent. Alex Cody. Louise Durfee. Josh Miller. I am here. In person. Cecil Lennon. Here. John Souza.
Here.
Deb Janik is here. Laura Epke is here. Don Cook. Here. Madeline O'Dell. And Nancy Driggs.
All right, first item, review and vote on minutes.
I've been made aware that Josh Miller was not here last week. So that'll be a change to the roll call.
I'll make a motion the minutes be approved.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. We have discussion.
Seems like it's all here.
Good. All in favor? Any opposed?
I abstain.
So voted. You presenting the police department budget?
No,
No. Hey.
I'll sit here for moral support.
Ooh. Yes, ma'am.
We didn't go through the police department budget, but it's
Pretty straightforward.
yeah.
Then we'll ask the police chief to come and convince us his budget.
I'm going to ask him to go nice and slow because we have a conflict tonight. The Personnel Board is meeting to review applications for the fire department.
Okay.
The fire chief is there explaining the online system for applications. So we have 47 applications. We more than
Really?
tripled our take from the last time because we've switched our method.
Wow.
How many did you get?
I think it was up to 75.
75. So,
Triple the...
no, let's do police. It's good.
Let's see how the timing goes, and we'll go from there. Chief, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Susan.
Fire when ready.
Well, the initial budget I put in was for 3 police cars, the surveillance cameras, parking lot, and the construction of a metal space building on site. As you may know, many of you may know, I've been trying to get an addition on the police station in a variety of ways for probably 3 to 5 years. To be redundant, we are at maximum capacity. There are man-hours that are wasted moving things to get to things, but realizing, of course, there's so much money to go around in the financial pie, we're going to probably reduce that request, and the parking lot, we push that off. I think Mr. Wojcik did that. But I'm just making you aware that we're aware that these things need to be addressed at some point. That's being said, if I may address the issue of the 3 police cars to start off with. This coming year, I requested $90,000 for 3 police cars. I'm trying to get my papers straight here. And since that time, I've come into some funding through the account for the maintenance account for the police cars for details. As you know, on Fish Road, we had a project there that took a considerable amount of time. There's a lot of side streets. We ended up using a lot of cruisers there. And we have enough money in that account now to purchase a police car this year. And I would have, if it's out of sequence, but I would have been before the council a couple of weeks ago, which canceled for the snowstorm, and to buy a police car this year. There is one of the low bidders from last year's cars. I spoke with the dealership. They have a leftover 2014 brand new, meets all the specifications. They wanted $26,000 to $27,000 for that car, and I was charming enough to convince them to come down to $21,500. So we'll get a new car with the extended warranty. The warranty will be separate, but for $21,500. We'll save the town $6,000 or $7,000 on the vehicle. It is okay because we don't trade our cars in, so we're not losing anything. And it's an all-wheel drive vehicle, exactly what we want. So that'll be free up some money for the next fiscal year. So instead of a request for 3 cars next year, it'll be down to 2.
Okay.
But it's a 3-year.
It's a 3-year, it's definitely a 3-year in the rotation, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so then it's going to be 2,
I
so
think,
it's 232, 232,
It's 223,
223.
yes.
so-
So for the
This is the third, then it's going to be 2, and then 3.
Oh, there'll be two.
You've lost me. But this year coming would have been 3-year.
Right.
okay,
16.
I think it's a little confusing because it
I'm sorry.
says 2 in 16, and I think, and 3 in 17, according to our schedule.
I don't have.
Okay, so what, the 2 in 16 have been satisfied and purchased, we'll have another one in 16. Is that a fair statement? So,
I'm looking for fiscal year 16, 17, 2 cars. I initially put in for 3. I'm taking that down to 2.
right,
But
but, see,
you're owning a
our,
third car.
Because you already have the
yeah,
money.
You got the extra money, so you're gonna buy the third car.
I'm still buying the 3rd car, yes. I'm not depleting what I'm purchasing, but I'm moving it up 6 months
Okay.
because
so
I have
it
the
falls
new
into this year. So
Yes.
next year, 17, we'll have 2 cars.
2 cars only. But it'll be a
Okay.
3 rotation year for future purchases.
Fine. So we'll just sort of, I mean, I'm sure the council will,
Well, I'm going to,
We
Yeah.
already spoke about it.
okay.
so did you contemplate for 30,000 apiece? Is that fair?
With the, unfortunately, since the Crown Victoria's rear-wheel drive cars have gone out of existence, the dealerships have planned obsolescence on everything now, whether it be the decals on the side, they don't fit the cars year to year like they did, the cages inside don't fit year to year, even in the same models. So we have to have extra money for that, and that's what the 30,000 would be. It would be moving things, as some of the, even the overhead lights become obsolete now. We used to use them for a decade, now it's 3 years tops. So, another benefit of this, if we do this year, is that it will free up one of our older cruisers right now, immediately, and with Mr. Wojcik's approval, that your car could be put to use with a department head if they so need it. It's a well-maintained car, it does have 114,000 miles on it, but we're currently using it, so it is a safe vehicle to drive.
Which might be an improvement over the things in the department's drive.
It's certainly not a new car, but it is a functioning vehicle. That has been well maintained. As you know, right now, the police, law enforcement across the country is in the crosshairs of a lot of things going on. We're held to a certain level, we're under the microscope, and you know that there are suits. If you read in the paper, we have a suit pending for being what I take as being a safe haven. They decided that we did not, we violated someone's rights. If we had the camera system that I'm going to request in place now, that suit never would have been filed, because we could have proven in a moment's notice that the facts that they're alleging never took place. So that's one of the reasons why I'm asking you to reconsider or seriously consider this camera system. I do have the initial proposal that I got from the first company I spoke with was $100,000, and I said, you know, listen, I just need transportation, I don't want to buy a Cadillac, just give me the Volkswagen model. And we went down, and we're working on some good camera systems, and we're looking at a couple grants that we're looking at too, to also help us with this thing. I would like to get it going, the camera system around $20,000, and then from there, start adding on to it and make it interoperable with whatever we can and we have currently in place. And it's, in my thought process, it's just dollar-wise, penny-wise, dollar-foolish, if we don't have these camera systems, and with a lawyer costing $300 or $200 an hour, to get some of these lawsuits, it will pay for itself. It's to say nothing about the reputation of the police department.
Is this the one that's interior, exterior, security and reporting?
Yes.
And it says 50,000?
Yes. And I would ask that to be reduced some as well. And that would be, I've looked at this, I've got it down to 38,000, and again, that was with, excuse me, please, a few extra bells and whistles that I'll have to eliminate and develop the program over.
You're so good on grants.
Okay.
There's no grant around for this?
As you know, there's some so-called Google money that the Attorney General had, and he shut me down flat. I was just trying to get
Just a,
$100,000 from him. He wouldn't give it to me, but, pardon?
How much are you looking for?
I'm going to start off with $20,000.
oh,
It's a big drop from 100,000, but I think I'd have some sources that I was looking at to try to build up on that system. But I want to start going, particularly want to take care of the lobby, any area that we have prisoners in, to try to limit our vulnerability and just cover ourselves whenever we have somebody in custody.
How does
So in
that,
5 minutes, you've gone from 50 to 38 to 20.
Right.
This is awesome.
Hey, I'm not,
Can we continue about 2 more minutes and we'll be down to 2?
no, that's it. That's the bottom line. That's the Saturn price. There's no haggling on that. But no, I realize that there's a serious need for this. I'll joke about it a little bit, but we have to have some record. Recently, a gentleman came in to see Mr. Wojcik, complaining, actually, with an allegation against me. We tried to use the camera system we had. It's on a continuous loop. When that individual found out that the loop had passed its date of your support, had looped over itself, all of a sudden, the allegation went from removing him from the building to having my fist drawn to hit him. As soon as he realized that this was, that's fine. I know what I did or didn't do, so that's fine. And it doesn't have any credibility, so that's okay. But it's nice to have something that just backs you up on it.
where do you, what about the drug money, the drug
We
fund?
have, that's something I'll be looking at as well. It's money well invested. We have around 39,000, 38,000 in there, but that's used for a variety of things as well. And I'm looking, I think I have an eye on a grant for around $8,000 right now that I would end up using on that. Pardon?
For the security?
To place right on that, yes.
So maybe we can pay for it with drug money and the grant that you get?
Not if I want to build upon it. That's my game plan. If I can get the initial purchase going and then build on it from there, that's what I'm trying to do. That's why I cut it down so quickly. I'm trying to think of the other avenues that I can start picking money from wherever I can get it. As you may or may not know, the government has stopped a lot of the drug seizure money because they feel it creates bad policing, that we're not in the business of making money, we're making bad arrests to generate funds rather than arresting bad guys. That's okay, but we are still going forward with our seizures, and we're looking at some federal money that way too. And of course, you know that the grant monies have dried up considerably. Even the burn grant monies those have dried up and dropped over the years, continually dropped. Nothing seems to be getting funded right now.
well, I must say, Chief, your budget has not changed hardly at all.
Yeah.
And of course, you're not very generous with the prisoners' meals either.
Get a Happy Meal.
Happy Meal, yeah.
That was kind of a tongue-in-cheek scenario way back when, but it's held us very well, so. And now with the specials, you buy 4 for 2, we're really in good shape.
Yep, oh, boys.
Yeah, I may interrupt, the town council did approve the 2 cars and the security system Saturday. We did put the security system back in.
For how much?
We did the full 50 because the chief wasn't there to explain this, so we did the full 50, but we will decrease it.
So that will change.
50 now.
Oh, I thought.
Sorry, I can talk myself into and out of most things.
Like you were gonna do or something.
No, we approved the bottom line.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. All righty.
Other than that, you want to go to line item?
The salaries are major, major differences in staffing, or?
There's actually 1 reduction in 1 police officer. We give it a minute. That was on capital gains. The contractual salaries have stayed pretty much what they are. I do have a concern about the educational benefits. Currently I have 4 people at Boston University, and their cost is around $7,000 per semester, where Roger Williams is around $25,000 or $3,000, and I cannot dictate where they go to school. So they're in the master's program, and that hits my education account. As a matter of fact, right now, it's the worst it's ever been. Budget-wise, I'm broke in that.
That's the second from the bottom here on page 4.
Education incentive?
Education incentive that's in their payroll. Let me find,
So the education incentive is in their contract.
Right.
They receive a stipend depending on what education level they attain and whether or not that they can use criminal
Oh, yeah.
justice.
Right.
So we have a state mandate
Oh, so
to
that's
fund their
page
progress
50.
towards it.
State education mandated.
Right.
right.
So that went up
So that's
20,000.
928.
20,000.
Okay, so that's going up 20,000.
But your operations went down 10.
Yes. We're doing okay. Trying to find this.
So that's state mandated, what?
Yes, they mandate it, but they do not fund it, and I've read the law, and it says whether it's budgeted or not, it's mandated by the state.
That's nice of them.
Yes.
So that explains the one increase in the expenses
Yes.
from 147.
And like, I don't mean to skip around, but
Please.
can we go back to the salaries, to the first,
Yes.
and help me understand we're getting another probationary officer, and the second class is going up to first class? Is that what I'm seeing?
If we're looking in the same place, yes. It's a progression. And it takes around 2 years the first 6 months they're in the academy. And I've changed the contract where, because I'm not actually having them on the street, I said their probationary period wouldn't start until they're on the road, so I'd have a full year to look at them. But I couldn't, I thought that was an important gain to be able to look at someone functioning on the street for a year rather than 6 months in the academy, 6 months in field training, and 12 weeks actually. And then I get them for 3 months on their own. I really can't look at them sufficiently to see if they're going to be able to make it or not. And it's $1 million investment. So now with the contract changed, the length of time, but not in their steps. That was the agreement with the union that their probation to second class time would remain the same, but their probationary period would extend, but their pay would change, and that's as it was already in the contract. But I think it's very important for the town to be able to view that employee for a longer period of time and to evaluate them. And if while they're on probation, we can get rid of them for pretty much no cost.
So
Okay,
in terms
so-
of presentation, I insist that we do this, because probationary police officers will, within the time frame foreseeable, start to earn more pay just as a matter of being there. So from year to year, as you look to the budget, you see people graduating up. You should see the progression and understand why there would be fluctuations in the bottom line for uniformed officer salaries.
Yes, and agree. This
Steps are
is a
significant.
normal thing that we've shown probationary at different steps. I think what I'm not understanding is that the approved for this current fiscal year for probationary, this I get, is 32,127. So this year it's 88, next fiscal year it's 88,891. So that's 2 probationary officers, right?
I think what you're getting at is that
No,
you would expect somebody to be in second class?
No, No, because I see that in the second class, 85 last year goes away, but then I see no increase of any substance in the first class.
Because we lost a person.
Oh, okay.
Or that
Okay.
person may have gotten lost, but...
Okay, so the second class didn't go up to first, okay,
The person that we reduced the staffing by 1.
okay, I get it.
Yeah. We're not filling a vacancy. but we also had a probationary police officer not successfully complete probation. So when we replace that individual, it will be as a probationary officer, and you will not see that officer progressing through the pay scale.
Unless it's a blue moon on Sunday?
Twice in June.
Okay.
I had a question on the relationship between the backup, which identifies sergeants.
Okay?
But in the list, I see captain, lieutenant, first class, second class, third class, fourth class, probationary. But I don't see sergeants.
It says detective sergeants,
Okay, so it's,
so it's a combination, because sergeants, excuse me if you please, detectives receive sergeant's pay.
pardon me, sergeant's pay.
They get sergeant's pay.
That clarifies that.
So under the general umbrella of sergeant, detectives are included. They're not called out, but they're in that.
In the military, they would call that a soft rank, because it's not permanent, it's not earned, it's just a stipend that they get while they're in that rank. When they revert back to patrol, if they do, they would revert back to the patrol rate.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief. Detective sergeants. 284. Now, on this list, where do I find that?
What, ma'am?
On this,
I think they'd be under sergeants.
there's no listing for sergeants, and there's no listing now for
Are you on page
detective.
14?
On page 11,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I was looking at a different page.
I'm looking at last year's budget, that's why.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
Page 14.
Detective sergeants, okay. Thank you.
Okay. We still have the school resource officer.
Now, the SRO is only at the high school, correct?
We actually put him between all the schools. We do rotate him as needed in different locations, but his primary area is the high school, yes.
Okay.
He's not limited to that.
I had a question about, I just didn't understand just for information, the budget last year, and I can't remember the exact amounts, I think it was 51,000 was put in the budget for the resource, but the school committee reimbursed us 54, correct? 54 something.
Correct, so,
So we just take what the school committee,
no,
okay.
I think we caught that this year. And I'm having memories of you and others, the very last night of the docket preparation, trying to figure out why your numbers weren't footing. Is this why you're remembering? Because I'm-
No, I just remember, I saw something here about the resource 54.
There's
And- but the
additional,
budget said 51.
there's additional loading that goes into that, that's not part of the salary line. So he has this rank in his base pay. So then the school department pays us back a partial amount, reflecting other salary-related costs.
Could be a college degree.
It's his education stipend and other things.
Remember,
In addition to this, though, right?
It should net out to zero. We carry it,
It nets out to zero on the police?
not perfectly,
no.
because we pay for his benefits, but
Well, the school pays 70,
They pay approximately 75%,
right.
counting everything.
Right, so
That was the
everything that
initial
goes
agreement.
into his salary. So it's salary, it's educational incentives, it's sick, and yada, 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 yada. But it's shown at full cost because he's a police officer.
We show it at full cost, I'm sorry for my misuse of the word net. We show it at full cost in the police department budget.
Right.
And then the amount we expect to be reimbursed to the town by the school department is at the very end of the budget and it's
Right.
netted out.
Right. Because we want to see the full operating costs of the police department.
The salaries in here, they include negotiations already? They're all set?
Yes.
For the police union, yes. They agreed to a 0.33.
Okay.
That actually works out to 0, 2.5, 2.5, because of the other givebacks they gave in the year 2 and year 3 of the contract. The police department has a number of ASME employees.
Right, that's what I was.
They are carried forward as level funded, and this is where we get back to a contingency for the council will account for any increase.
That's what I meant, I didn't state it correctly.
Right, this is just sworn personnel. The salaries will reflect negotiated salary just for the sworn personnel.
We can keep going with you, I mean, you know, you're...
Once again, I take it on the chin for the fire department. Fine, no problem.
I don't want to,
I'm sorry.
I don't want to beat this horse too much.
I don't think we've asked for anything other than that one thing that stuck out with the education center, only because we are going to have a problem with that.
Anybody got any further questions for the chief? Alex?
You and I were talking, Chief, remember you were talking about what it costs you to do the background checks?
Yes, I talked about that with Mr. Wojcik initially, and when we do a background check, we spend between 40 and 48 hours to do a complete background check. Now, that is for police and fire personnel. Just recently, there was an example, we did 2 for the fire department, and we weren't really that far into the individual, and we made a recommendation to the fire chief that he just not hire that person quickly, to quickly take him out of the running.
But when you and I were talking, I had mentioned to you about having a separate account.
It would be
Take
beneficial.
that money out of, not out of your account.
Now, when we spoke at the station, what I said was I would like to have had a separate line item for the town in Mr. Wojcik's budget, not to push it into yours, but definitely his, or someone who can control it, and we have to answer to, so it's not considered a slush fund or whatever you want to call it. That way, when I say we're going to do a background check on someone, I will submit, if I have to send officers to Providence or to whatever place we, or, and just so, let's say it's a Tivertonian, and we have to send them to his employer, or we have to send them somewhere, we have to check with every mental institution in a certain area, every gambling hall in every certain area, every branch of the service, whether you're in it or not, plus all the documentation. You have to visit their home, you have to visit their neighbors, you have to check with all the registry, whatever they have, whatever. And if there's any leads from that, we have to go there. So this counts, so it can, 40 to 48 hours we will put on every employee that before we bring them in to actually be a serious candidate. That I would like to see I know money's tight, and I realize that, but I think it's an investment. If it came from someone we had as checks and balances, Mr. Wojcik, we're going to do this number of checks, this is something that I think we'll do, because right now, it's coming out of the police department pie, if you will, and whether it be overtime or taking away from services, I have to take somebody off the road to go and do these things, it's all police driven. I understand that we have access, but it's also, cuts down on my staffing. Or it takes away from my records clerks, because they have to go start doing all these things into the computers and doing the records checks and contacting the military bases, et cetera.
Plus, it's never shown anywhere. We don't see any price tag associated with background checks.
With all due respect, Chief, isn't that part of the police work that you'd undertake?
Is it, within reason, I think so, yes. But at some point, where do you start taking away from Peter to pay Paul? You're taking away from the police and you're taking us off the road, and you're taking away from my clerk for doing her services. Today, I've got a request for open records check that's going to take unbelievable amount of man-hours for the last 10 years. This is a part of the police? Yeah, we're going to do it, but we have to put something else down to get it done. I understand your point. I understand what you're saying is, but it just seems to keep coming out of the one, whether it be I'm doing it for all the recreation, or I'm doing it for every department in town. But the reason I don't want to have it in my budget is this way we're not using it for, when at the end of the year, let's just say we don't hire 5 people this year. At least it's there, it's under control, and we're not going to it. That's
Well,
why I'm saying that way.
I just think it should be somewhere. The expense should show up in somebody's budget. It's not in here, is it?
No.
It's just showing
So-
up under, it's under salary.
I take it out of my overtime, my current overtime and my current budget.
So we don't get a true cost of doing that, we don't get a true cost of the overtime. I mean, it's a legitimate, absolutely necessary function. It should be in here and accounted for, budgeted for.
If you're asking, is that a true cost? No, I could not possibly give you a true cost unless I did an hourly.
No, I know that, I know
Equation.
that. But to me, it ought to just be a line item somewhere. Where it should be, that could be debated, but it should be in here somewhere. Should be visible.
I agree.
Well, it would be a lot of work to attribute it, though.
Well,
I don't
make it
understand.
central, I mean,
I don't know, that's hard to...
it doesn't have to be attributed to a department.
No, it's,
Function.
in the past, I used to actually bill the agency that I did it for. And we're not doing that any longer. We're just using it at the police services.
So what would happen is that certain personnel, their time would be spent on this rather than normal duties.
Correct.
So it would mean to have this separate account, so to speak, then you would have to allocate 2 hours of their time to go in this account.
Well, it's not that. You have to remember, when dealing with union contracts, they say I have a minimum of 4 hours to pay someone. And I have minimum staffing issues. I can't take someone off the road, to say, go do this, because if you go out of town, I can't do that. Could I have him at the computer doing background checks, or, well, contact the telephone? Absolutely. But he's not on the road any longer. He's part of my 3-man staffing, but he's in the station.
You know, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sympathetic.
Oh.
State police does all kinds of investigations.
Not a problem. I'm just trying to say that I have 3
Right.
guys on the road, and I'm taking...
Yeah, and I think that has to go into your staffing levels, but to have a separate line item, I don't think is really appropriate. But if you need additional personnel because there's additional work, that, I think, is a different question that is identified.
Well, I'll take an extra 2 guys if you want to give me...
Yeah, I'm sure you would.
I agree with Louise, I mean, I think...
No, I'm just letting you know that
You
we're...
also, you obviously, you're using staff to do something that probably is a police function, but you need somebody else.
I have no objection to doing it because we have the authority to get into these backgrounds. But I'm just saying, something has to give. If I have X number, and that's all. Then we have to take some of the services away, and that's all.
So you're saying... It's gotta be a line item, another show. It's gotta be an expensive proposition.
If we have, that's why I said if it's in my budget, that's fine, but I prefer that if it was in fact available, I don't want to have control over it. I would rather say, here's what I need to get this accomplished, and there's a checks and balances and accountability where it is. And I agree with Ms. Durfee that the fact is, this is our job, we have no problem doing it. But I'm just saying, another service is going to suffer. I won't have a car on the road if I have 3-man staffing, other than bringing somebody in for 4-hour minimum while this person's making phone calls to get this done. And
Yeah, and that's understandable.
and if we have a crash that night, the background check is not getting done if they're over when they have to stand by a down pole or something.
I would just
I'm
like to say
just,
that, but I'm not gonna go crazy about it.
Yeah, I'm just making the fact.
Quit while you're ahead.
I'm fine, I'm easy to get along with.
So you're just doing police and fire, is
No, we've actually done quite we do everything, and
any town employee?
So virtually everyone now. But what we do is we focus on only those who are advanced to us as finalists by the personnel.
That's what I was going to ask, because you've got all those applicants. I
We
mean,
don't go through all of that, and there is an opportunity to push some of the BCI costs onto the applicants themselves. I'm very sympathetic towards doing it that way. I don't like internal service accounts and cross-billing between departments, because if we did that, I'd be a profit center, trust me.
That's why we don't do it.
Right, but what, we put in a policy when we started that we would not expose any recreational employee, part-time, full-time, or otherwise, to children unless they came back clean on a BCI check. That was not a policy that was in place when I started. It's mind-blowing that we had lifeguards and camp counselors exposed to children with no background done. So we do them all now. Different levels of concern and interest. Sworn officers who are going to carry a weapon and represent the force of law get a very high level of scrutiny. Firefighters similarly, especially their driving record. You're driving around a piece of equipment that costs $500,000, you ought to not have a bad driving record. But some of the others, we do the typical state, BCI, neighboring state, quick national check, and that's it. Depends on the level of responsibility.
I will be reviewing this with Mr. Wojcik. I have a thought. And I am going to be pushing some of this onto the applicants.
I like your plank idea.
Which one is it?
Walk the plank.
Okay, I never had that idea.
Okay.
Whatever it is.
I just have one. Is it possible to have them pay for the security check, or is that? As I'm reading the law, I can make them do a lot of it now. I prefer to. The other visitations and some of the things that they can't have access to, we will do, but a simple BCI check, they will have to present it to us now. We're not going to run around and do it. When they do for something as simple as background checks for driving history for plow drivers in the town, we're looking at this as liability. If you have someone driving a plow for your town and they are a person who has a drunk driving record and you're employing them and they crash, we have hell to pay. So we're going to make, in the future, we're going to talk and discuss this at length, and we're going to make them come in with their driving record. If you want to work from us, there's be a little bit of an effort on your part. Right now, we've been doing it, but I'm going to revise that with Mr. Wojcik's blessing.
Sounds like a good plan.
And also, how about retired police officers that they come in on just straight pay for 2 hours and that's what they do? And can you use retired police officers that can't do that?
I can't do that, no.
Okay, I was just wondering.
Contractually, cannot, no.
Okay.
I can use them on details, but they're not allowed to carry weapons, and if they carry a weapon, it costs the town $1,000 per man, so I can't do
So they
that.
can't do the background checks?
No.
Okay.
We all set?
The only other thing I want to emphasize or bring out, Mr. Chairman, is in the 3330, 5109 health and wellness account is zeroed out. We agreed to take that out.
And that was held last year too, wasn't it? Yes.
Well, I think there was a misunderstanding last year with the petitioner's budget. It came out a year early, so we had to back fund it this year, but it's out next year. And then in year 3, they contribute an additional 0.5% to OPEB.
Yes. In the gas, this is for a future date, and I don't think we have the data right now to show it. But it would be nice to see how much, now that we have the pump at the DPW, everybody is using the pump at the DPW, we have those smart little cards, we have data on usage by department. So I would think it'd be nice to see how much we spent on gas before and how much we're spending on it now with, some smart statistical smoothing done to compensate for change in price of oil.
So the price has changed.
What are we gonna get?
How do you do that?
You know, we're
On
gonna
your
create
free
a
time.
nightmare here just to track
In your free
something?
time. Has anybody thought, I just would like to,
The time to recognize the impact of going to a computerized tracking system as opposed to paper slips on the floor of some guy's pickup was recognized immediately when the system was first installed and there wasn't any fluctuation in price. And you had to have an authorization code or a collar or whatever they're using to get to engage the pump. And we saw a significant change at that time. Now, the prices have fluctuated so much since. You really, I did a lot of econometrics, but I don't know if I want to tackle that.
Okay. I just think it would be nice to see on paper how beneficial that has been to
I
the
think the
town.
problem is with those slips, they didn't necessarily write down the quantity of fuel they were putting in, or if they only did the quantity, not the price. There's going to be half the data missing all the time.
You're right.
So,
Well, the price is fixed. I mean,
no, back in the day, when they were on slips.
Pardon, please?
Was it back?
No, I mean, but the price that we bid, once we go out to bid, is 10 cents over the gallon, at whatever the price is, that's how that goes, so.
It's not worth a lengthy discussion. I think it was a very good example of being pound-wise, penny not foolish, if I can twist that. And it would be nice to have some evidence of that, because sure enough, there's something going to pop up in the future where if we spend money now, we're going to save a lot of money later, and it would be nice to have those figures to say, look at what we did.
Even if you just look at this in your book, the 7611 account,
Yeah,
you look at fiscal 2012 actual at 85,000, and this is the police department. And you're down to 62.
yeah.
I know there's been a lot of price changes in that time frame. That's still a rather extraordinary thing.
Yeah. Decrease.
Okay, what else?
Anything else?
We all set? Anything you want to bring to our attention that we haven't
No,
covered?
I have no regrets of dropping the price of the cameras down. I thought I would, as we were talking about that, so I'm going to get laughed at a little bit by the council, but that's okay. I think I'm trying to look out for the overall picture as far as what people need, and we'll be okay. I think the department's going to be fine, and I think our budget is pretty reflective of what we're trying to accomplish, so,
Okay.
Thank you much, sir.
thank you.
Good luck. Spend all that money well, wisely.
Too. Well, I kept comparisons.
Your cohort showed up and bailed you out.
Did you finally show up?
Yes, he did.
Good. Got me on the hot seat long enough. Have a great evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Mr. Fire Chief, you gonna sit over there and cogitate?
Oh, whatever you'd like me to do, sir.
Oh,
Administrator.
Don't open that door.
don't open that door.
You haven't, the council hasn't touched the fire department.
Yes, no? No.
No, they have not.
We'll try to give them some ammunition.
We had a ball on Saturday. Yeah, we dealt with the capital with the fire.
Well, if it changes too much by you guys, we can have him back for a second
Yeah,
round.
well, yeah.
Welcome, sir,
Well, good evening.
and how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking.
You're on, go for it.
Well, I'm not sure how you'd like to go through that. I would like to do it.
Major changes,
Why don't you talk about your change
you know,
in rank?
and then we'll get
The
into...
salary rank, yeah, that's
Okay.
confusing.
We can do that. During, excuse me, one of the things that we've been working hard on is the
trying to make sure we keep our people, and we're trying to retain them. We've got a committee together that we're all working together to try to solve that. One of the issues that did come forward in the last contract was there was a change in the rank structure, which created a shift supervisor who is a captain, and then will be a lieutenant. There is right now one lieutenant north, and as of July 1st this year, a lieutenant south will be in charge of those stations and those apparatus. So that changes the rank structure a little bit. And you will notice in your, the other addition we have is for a full-time fire marshal now. And I can just tell you straight out, the amount of work that man has been able to accomplish. I think for the first time in the 11 years I've been here, we're probably more than 50% through all the annual inspections for the year, which is phenomenal. We had 2 fires this weekend. He investigated both fires. I've gotten praise from him from the State Fire Marshal's office for the work. But again, by contract, he is held at the rank of, or paid at the rank of a captain, but his title is Fire Marshal. So in this year's budget, you will look and you'll see that there are, when you look down the rank structure for the time, there is a salary for 3 captains where we used to have 1 captain. There is salary for...
Wait, no, let me just write it down so I don't
Yep.
forget. So there's 3 captains.
Do you have Mr.
A
Wojak's?
north-south fire marshal.
Do you have Mr. Wojak's?
Yes, they have no.
Yes.
It should be in the very top.
Can I ask you to back up for just 1 second?
Sure.
We've gone from 4 shifts of firefighters working 10s and 14s to 3 shifts of firefighters working 24-hour shifts. And they elected to be on, off, 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 off. So they work 48 hours straight, and then they're out for 4 days. The notion was, we were running 4 shifts at 8, and minimum inning was 7. So if we had vacation, sick, FMOI, we were almost always going to run short, no matter what we did. But with 3 shifts of 9, you're 2 above your minimum inning level. You have more room for people to be out. And then your full complement of firefighters is 27 instead of 32. So we effectively did a reduction in force of 4 because we added back the fire marshal as a day staff, a full-time day staff, plus a chief.
We talk about that all the time, so I'm assuming
Yeah, no,
everybody's familiar with that.
No, I mean, so you're joining late, and then now on a shift, we have 3 stations running at full staff, running 9 guards. There'd be 1 captain and 2 lieutenants on each shift. When we reach that threshold in June of this year.
Right, June.
We'll have, presently we have 3 lieutenants and 3 captains. We'll be at 6 lieutenants and 3 captains. But each piece of apparatus will be manned by a ranking officer when it responds.
So that $354,000 lieutenant figure is for 6 lieutenants?
Yes, sir.
Look at the
Wait, you're
bottom line,
saying
it doesn't.
you're gonna have 6 captains?
No, the bottom,
3.
3, I thought
3 lieutenants, 6
Three
lieutenants,
6
3
lieutenants.
captains, 6 lieutenants.
6 lieutenants, right.
that's because of the money we saved in the contract.
Yeah.
So when you look at it, each shift will have a main supervisor who is the captain.
Right.
There'll be a lieutenant north and a lieutenant south. In the absence of the captain, the senior officer would move into the captain's rank at acting officer. Then another person who is on the promotion list would go into the acting office. This gives us a span of control that allows for someone at all incidents to be there, to be in charge, and to have people who are accountable in each one of the stations. This is the way most fire departments are set up.
And they test in.
Yeah, they have to test into these positions. These aren't just handed out.
So everyone understands, a fully loaded cost of firefighter, first-class firefighter, guys, been through his probation, fully loaded, they're $110,000 a piece. So when you reduce 4, you had significant savings just from reducing 4 in the roster. Some of that went back into the budget in the form of rank, which gave opportunities for leadership, a small change in pay, and opportunities for us to run the department, for the chief primarily to run the department as an incident management system with accountability from top to bottom at every single incident. So in year one of the contract, and I invite you to look at the fiscal impact statement, in year one, the net savings to the town was about $250,000. Now, there are other changes in here, over the budgeted amount. So there's a significant savings in year one of the contract. Year two, more or less brings us to break even from 2 years back. And in year three, it'll be slightly higher. Because we are compensating, we're the only town that has negotiated a 3-platoon 24-hour system. We signed the contract. So there was a 19% baseline bump, but a 33% reduction in hourly rate. Balance the politics of that and how that worked out. And we still ended up, on the life of the contract, saving the town almost $500,000.
And it affects overtime too, doesn't it? I mean, it will decrease
There
overtime.
are multiple attempts to control overtime in the way the contract was structured. It's not achievable.
So Sonia, go ahead, you're too good.
One is by having a larger margin of error. So
Right.
nine rostered, 7 minimum. That's one place where you can slow down the overtime. The union also agreed in the contract to capitate their overtime. Once overtime reached a certain threshold level, the town would revert to a strict adherence to the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Which
Which
is,
means we do a 28-day look back, and you only make overtime if you've worked more than 212 hours in 28 days. And that means actually worked. So vacation time, sick time, all that doesn't accrue towards that 212. So it's a very significant change in the structure of overtime. Now, the only time this doesn't, the model will never work if we're understaffed.
right,
So, the crisis point and the energy point is to recruit and retain firefighters.
but we also have a fire marshal now, so that,
We were
correct me if
staffing
I'm
up
wrong,
overtime.
we're not
You know-
paying that out of overtime too.
Correct.
It might be useful for the Budget Committee to see a copy of the fiscal impact
Okay.
as to how it plays out. Because just looking at cold numbers,
It's hard.
it doesn't translate into how the shifts work, et cetera. And with such a change, it almost would be useful, perhaps the fiscal impact statement does this, but an explanation of the shifts and the hours and the change would be very useful in a budget presentation. But if that's covered by the fiscal impact, we'll take a look at it.
I think, Ms. Durfee, one of the other things to look at too is, Mr. Wojcik had just also mentioned to me, is that if you look back last year at this time, we were probably looking to start transferring money in, and we were getting up in the $300,000, $400,000 range in overtime.
Yeah,
And right now, I think we're probably about 100 to maybe 110,000 in overtime right now. So to say the plan is working, it is working.
I think the
It's taking a lot of
treasurer's
work.
figures showed a balance of the 175 as of the end of the year of 91,000. And I noticed in your agenda coming up, there's a $10,000 transfer from the Carpianato hearings into the overtime account.
Yeah.
Did you? So, but it's a measurable
Keep in
change.
mind, the contract that they agreed to is what everybody's fighting for all over the state, so the firemen did come to the table and negotiate very well.
But to get that contract, you had to do the sunset clause.
No. There is no sunset clause in that.
Well, as I was reading it, it says the first year of the contract for overtime, it's 125,000, and the second year it's 150,000, and then it's 175,000, and then it says sunset, and then it goes to the way you're going to do the look back on their hours. That's how I read it.
No, the only thing that changes in that's, we were going into the Fair Labor Standard Act and doing it, following those were all key numbers that jump in. What was sunsetted in there was there was an issue with vacation that they had given up on certain times. It used to be that they could have 2 men on vacation for June, July, and August, and that ran up the cost, because they would have another 30 days that I could have an additional man off that would cost me. The sunset of that, we had negotiated that out of the contract, so right now they can only have 2 men on vacation for July and August. That section does sunset, so we'll go back to in June that they could go back on 2 men again. But being above on the staffing of the shift does allow at least that little bit of cushion, because if I was at 8 and there was 7-man minimum, anytime I dropped below that, I had to hire somebody back.
And they bid on their vacations by seniority?
Yes, they do. Yes. So there is a reduction in the overall staff, but we have created the rank structure to try to maintain people. When we put this all together at the time going into the first-class firefighters, there were 10 that were going to be in the first-class ranking. There are 4 that will be in the second-class ranking, 2 in the third-class ranking. We had done in the contract, it was one of the pots, there was a 4th class, and the 4th class seemed to hold the junior guys down even more, which gave them more incentive to want to look to go somewhere else, because it kept them down in pay. So in the contract, we did negotiate out the 4th class, because it was harming us with retention. And we've gone in, and again, right now I'm looking at 2 probationary firefighters. These numbers may change as things go about, but for right now, this is what my staffing is at this point in time.
Can I just, ignorance, what does CBA, another acronym?
Collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you.
No problem.
So just to clarify, the 4th class has been eliminated?
Has been eliminated, yes. But it was one you had in last year's budget, so we left it in so you'd understand that that's not there. I don't have anybody in that classification. The other person I have is Mrs. Ferrera, who is the AFSCME employee, who is my assistant. She is also the billing clerk and is responsible for bringing in approximately $500,000 to $530,000 in third-party billing for the town. They are in a negotiation right now, and I have here where I've put in 48,375 is trying to anticipate some type, I'm sure there will be an increase in the collective bargaining through that.
We don't have the revenues yet, Chief.
No.
So what you're saying is, we don't have it before us yet.
Right, no, I understand, Ms. Dorothy, for last year, that's what we had brought in. We're still working and trying. It's very difficult. Our runs have increased. We did 3,100 calls this year, which is the 12th year in a row that we've done an increase in activity. To look at what the rescue billing is going to go up, it's a swag. I mean, we know we're going to increase money, but what it is depends upon where the calls are, who the calls are. Right now, the majority of our rescue service is to provide it to Tiverton residents who are between the ages of 45 and 85.
And that year to date of 237.
I'm sorry?
237,000 year to date as of January, third party.
As of right now, yes. If that's what, I don't know what the most current numbers are on that one. As we get those revenues in, they're deposited into that account. Overtime, again, with that collective bargaining, we're doing very well this year. I don't want to jinx it, so we're hoping that that's going to, if we keep it the way we are, we should be good with that $250,000 number. 200 for next year? I have a mistake in mind there. That was my request. Matt?
Bad Santa, I told you I should.
All right, well, I didn't change my slide, so,
I didn't give it to Blake, he's here all the time.
okay, as long as he doesn't get it, that's all I want to know.
Well,
That makes sense.
well, and year-to-date, I mean, I know it's hard to do that on overtime, but as at the end of December, it's 84,000, right?
There's $91,000 left, so. The big item is not your budget. It's the proposed ambulance, which you want to...
If you want to go through
Council
the rest,
hasn't really addressed that yet.
Yes,
They
we
did
have.
the capital fund.
We did do capital.
Oh, you did do
Yeah, we did
capital,
the whole-
and that was a favorable plus?
And they can explain why.
Yes.
If you'd like me to talk about that now, or would you, Mr.
Well,
Chairman, would you like to
let's finish the-
continue through this and then go to that?
Let's
or-
finish the operating and then go to that.
because there are some things in here that I think we should talk about. The differential pay, you'll see a change in the differential pay. Differential is paid for those officers that are going to be acting out of rank, acting up. Now with the increase of officers, looking at the amount of people that we have that will be filling in, there is an increase in the differential, which is the, I'm looking at it upside down, sorry, the 5105 account. Also, the next one would be the holidays. There'll be a change in the holidays, because again, there'll be different officers getting different pays, and there has been an increase.
And the decrease in longevity is,
Well, I have less people who are senior rank now. We've lost a lot of the senior people.
and the educational allowance going up is...
The educational allowance is going up. This was an issue that had come up a while ago, is I have one member, I am required by contract to pay for paramedical classes. I have a member who is in paramedical school. You remember a few years ago, this account went up to $20,000 because we had 5 members that were in. I have one member that is finishing up his paramedical school right now. We're required to pay for that. The cost that I have received from him for what his class will be if he successfully passes it is $3,750. So, the $3,000 I'm required for anybody else who takes educational classes, which the guys do. If they're taking college courses and much, and they successfully pass those in fire science, I have to pay for those too, so. And
Okay,
that's
so it's 3,000 plus.
the $3,750, yes. Clothing allowance is simply, again, contractual. What is for uniforms, they're up at $1,300 apiece. If I have new people coming on, I have to, at the end of the first year, I have to buy them dress uniforms. Dress uniforms are $500 and change apiece. EMS incentive, the breakdown of EMS incentive, that is a stipend that is paid again by contract for those people who have medical clearance, medical certifications. Right now, I have 16 paramedics that will receive an extra $57.50 a week. I have 11 cardiacs who receive an extra $52.50, and we have one person left who is a basic. He'll be the only one that will be getting a stipend as a basic. So the total on that is $79,950.
And why did we have it at 92 last year?
I had more firefighters last year.
Okay.
Right now, I'll have 11, at this moment, 11 cardiacs. 16 paramedics. Yep, 16 paramedics.
Excuse me, isn't that a requirement for the job, the going for the different rank in the cardiac and EMS? I mean, they can't just be a fire.
No, everybody has to operate on the rescue. One of the things we are looking at this year, and I haven't told Mr. Wojak yet.
It's part of the job.
It is, but they receive an extra stipend for carrying that certification. It's been negotiated through their contract. They've always received that.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, is it required that they all be cardiac certified?
At minimum cardiac, yes.
At minimum.
So I don't know why you pay an incentive when it's part of the job.
That's what I'm not understanding what Ms. Cook is.
What Ms. Cook is saying is, if you want to be a firefighter, we're requiring you to be a cardiac, you should not receive anything extra for that, is exactly what she's saying. However, through contractual negotiations, they have negotiated in that they receive an extra stipend every week for certain certifications.
It's weird.
To have paramedics, which is a higher level of classification, is absolutely a plus for the town to have. And I'll go case in point, just recently where they were recognized, we had 5 cardiac arrests in a month and a half, and 5 of those were saves, which is phenomenal, which is absolutely phenomenal. I'll put my guys in this service as rescue people up against anybody, but I understand what's being asked, but it's a contractual item, I have to pay them.
Well, I'm not blinking about that, it just...
I think it may go back 2 years ago when they were all EMTs, and this was an incentive to become paramedics and cardiacs. And that's how it was written to the contract years ago because it used to be just the.
But that's not the way it is now.
So it's not really an EMS incentive anymore, it's just
No,
the
it's a
EMS
requirement of the
pay.
job.
But why do we still have one basic then?
We only have one man who's still a basic, he's grandfathered. He's been here for a very long time. But I will say that the stipend does entice some of the men to go get the paramedic certification, which is a benefit to the citizens of the town.
So you're
Absolutely.
saying that the paramedic part of it is an incentive, they don't have to go for paramedic?
They don't have to go for
Okay,
paramedic.
all right,
Okay,
Oh, that's,
okay, that straightens it out.
Okay, well, that-
I was,
didn't really say that.
Okay. Russia. All right, educational allowance, I think we talked about that one. The longevity, again, that's based upon the number, the breakdown, it's a pretty complex breakdown of what members are at what levels for the percentage, again, by contract. Oops. The fire marshal's salary, Matt, I don't know if you want to address this. I had taken this, but go ahead.
Yeah, every year we do this, we learn about how we want to present this information so it's easier to understand. Up until this year, the fire marshal's office was staffed by individuals who had a state fire marshal's card who staffed the office on overtime. And the 5112 account was broken out to demonstrate or to budget for that function. Firefighters working as fire marshals on overtime 4 days a week. We now have a full-time fire marshal. So I'm much more comfortable with that salary being in the 5101 line, the personnel salary, base salary line items, and some there. Because quite frankly, the fire marshal will only rarely be awarded overtime, given his work schedule, and he'll get overtime when he responds to.
He gets flex time.
Fires.
He gets flex time, he gets no overtime.
So
so what is
this
that
account will
line?
go away, so this dollar amount will be in the 5101 account, and we'll break out a rank for this individual, same way we do for captains, lieutenants, first-class firefighters. There'll be a line item in the 5101 personnel account for the fire marshal, and this 5112 special overtime account will be eliminated.
yeah, it indicates that it's some kind of a stipend or something being paid to anonymous people for a fire marshal inspections.
If you,
You know, I mean, it should be, it's a person, he's the fire marshal.
part of it, Mr. Chairman, if you look at a printout from the treasurer's office right now, we had been working his salary out of the fire marshal inspections, because that's what he was doing. But last year, by the petition, his budget, that was cut. So all the money is not there, and I was looking to transfer money in. I thought I was keeping it above board to show that that's where the fire marshal inspections were being taken care of, but it makes perfect sense. It is a base salary account. It's a contractual item. So just knowing that going forward, the 61,790 will be in the base salary in the 101 account. So I don't know, did we
so
actually
the
make this
fire
whole line go away?
The fire marshal is not represented in the lines above them for,
Correct, he is not.
okay,
He is not.
fine.
So we need to somewhere make that change to, so that it reflects in that appropriate line, if we want to change it.
But it does show that
We
have
had
a
this
full-time
battle
fire
last
marshal.
year on the budget committee, and we approved it, and I'm glad to see this is working out.
I don't have any problem if the fire marshal's line is shown separately. I mean, there's no reason that it has to be lumped in with whatever rank the fire marshal is. I think it's fine to show it what the fire marshal service cost is. But that, I don't really, that's my own thought, I don't really.
Again, that's up to you as the committee, I'm just showing you where I had used it from.
It's up to the town treasurer or whoever corrects creates the line.
Sure.
I noticed in June of 2015, so that would have been fiscal year 14-15.
Yes.
But at the very end of it, so after the FDR, after the budgets had been brought, there was 51,000 transferred out of the personnel salary count to go to overtime. And it sounds like this salary account is made up out of base salaries that people are being paid, correct?
It is, but the part of the puzzle you're missing with that is there were emergency measures that were taken that, excuse me, brought down some of that. We had a termination of an employee, and we had several employees leave. So there was a surplus, I shouldn't say a surplus, but there was an excess left in that base salary account. So it was moved from base salary to overtime to offset, because we had to backfill positions that were vacant. It seems like there was...
There was vacancies then that...
I understand what you're saying. It looks like there was excess money put in there, and there was no excess in there. The excess came from vacancies and people leaving and a termination.
Hence, an increase in overtime.
It was moved from there to cover the overtime, right? Right, one affected the other, that's correct.
Chief,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping we move to operating expenses.
Sure, we can go right there if you'd like to.
But just really, from my standpoint, to hit the highlights, and one of the questions I had was firefighters training. Are we going back into the training business?
No, we are not. What Mr. Wojcik had asked me to do on the training was we have several members. The goal is to get every member certified that is currently on the job. I'm trying to think of the best way to explain this to you. Everybody should be a firefighter at level 1, level 2, hazmat operations, several other things that should be there. I have several older firefighters that have been here for a while that do not have that certification. We were looking, and I was asked to put forward a plan how to get those. What I have to do, because we can't go back in to do our own, is I have to hire the state to come in to teach. This is an additional cost. This was money that was put into the firefighter training to try to make that happen going forward.
And so everyone understands, this department is always trying to improve itself. And your ISO rating, which is the insurance industry's baseline rating of the town, has gone up steadily from a Class 6 community to a Class 4 community. And so that should filter through people's homeowners rates. What's keeping the Tiverton Fire Department from going from a 4 to a 3? Training is the single one issue that's holding it back. So it's an addressable issue, so we should go with it.
Good.
Telephone, I'm just curious.
Oh, God.
Seriously,
Well, I
like
was
the police, the telephone was flat. Why is the fire telephone? I know it's not a lot, but I was just curious.
Well, I was just reading the treatise in the book here.
Are you accusing me of being verbose?
Well, because I remember when we went from Verizon to Cox.
We still have, part of the big jump on this is that we still have to have Verizon lines that make our radio system operate. It's dependent, the way the system was designed, it's dependent upon what's called RTNA lines, which are leased lines. There are 7 different pairs of lines that I'm paying for, and they, without notice, just increased the cost of them. We're paying about $1,300 a month for those leased lines. I've gone out to try to seek grants to be able to allow us to get rid of that, which is put in a system that's called a point-to-point system, which gets rid of the phone lines. The phone lines are still, they're the weakest point of our link. To be able to do that is about $240,000, $260,000. So I've put in for a federal grant trying to get it. But the buyback for us to go out and just do it is not cost-effective at this time. It'd be the way to go, but it's not a cost-effective measure to get the buyback on it. But then also the, cell phones for the rescues have to communicate with the hospitals and all the data they send back and forth. Those are all on that, but.
It's those lines, I can't explain how this all works. But you have redundant, you have a pipe going each way, in between each station.
Each radio receiver
Radio receiver.
in the base stations, yes. And then one that goes from the main base to the police station to the desk at the police, dispatch. They're expensive. We were hoping that fiber optics would come in, fiber optics didn't come in, and so we're stuck with the copper lines. It's expensive. And when you go talk to Verizon, they basically tell you, tough luck.
I was a business consultant for years with utility companies, and this is great. When you have a captive customer and a fixed asset, you just take all your loading and you pile it onto that asset because they can't escape you. They have to have those lines. Just like the streetlights. Why are the maintenance costs on from National Grid on streetlights so high? Because nobody ever challenged it before. So it was a place you just took cost buckets and you allocate until you get a return on the asset. It's clever.
And point-to-point would not be, I mean, if you got, okay, so if you got the grant, it wouldn't be that difficult to switch over and...
Just a flip of a switch.
Maybe a little bit more than that.
Well, I have to have somebody climb the radio towers to put them up and line them up and such, but, yeah, it would be the way to go.
You volunteering?
No,
I'd climb it. I mean, I'm not sure how much more of each one of the items, if there's one in particular you want to go through. I'll go through every single one of them if you want, but I didn't know if the committee has questions. I don't want to type your time on them.
Medical director, EMS.
Okay. It's, one of the items that came out that we needed that helps our paramedics and our firefighters, or our EMTs, recertify and gives us an oversight is a medical director. It was one of the things that was sought that we felt would be an improvement plan for the department. Working with St. Anne's Hospital, we have received a medical director. Right now, you'll look in this current budget and you'll see that the $8,000 from last year is still there. That's because we have not received our bill from them yet for last year. So it has been advantageous. Anytime our paramedics or our cardiac techs need to recertify their licenses, the medical director has to sign off on it. He comes in, he does training monthly with the guys, goes over things, and he reviews all the medical calls that we go on to ensure that we're doing things correctly. He's a protection for the town, and it's a good benefit.
Yep, thank you.
It's very cheap at that price, to be honest with you.
Very cheap.
Yeah. Can we talk about the ambulance?
Can I just, I want to understand why medical supplies is going up.
I'm sorry. Laura, did you?
Medical supplies is going up, not by much, but...
Right, our activity is going up, and I've tried to reflect that, because a lot of our own supplies, we have to buy them ourselves. We're not restocked from the hospitals, but we are restocked on some of our medications. We have to buy them from the hospital. But these are the soft goods, the bandages, the dressings, Hepalox, IV catheters, all those things, all this stuff. But our activity is going up, and we try to reflect that into the cost of doing the business.
And what about medical physicals?
Medical physicals, okay, no, I'll let you finish your question if you want. Medical physicals, again, is an NFPA requirement for anybody to bring a breathing apparatus, and that's we work with Concentra, a company in Warwick, that gives each one of them a medical physical, an NFPA compliant medical physical, that I feel is a great protection for the town, because we're going to find problems early. We did find one member last year who was not able to be in breathing apparatus, and he had to go get that taken care of and then be recertified to be able to in. It finds problems early. It helps with our I believe, overall our health costs, because we're finding issues earlier.
What do you mean?
Medical issues.
What do you mean be on breathing apparatus?
Wearing, to go into a fire, he has to wear a cardiac pack and a breathing apparatus. They have to have that. They need to have a medical physical to be cleared to wear that. It protects us to say if something did happen, we had a certified physical to show that they were compliant to be able to.
Just the cost of that?
That's the cost, is about $550 per man. It's a little lower than it was last year, because I have less members that have to be cleared medically because of the reduction in the workforce.
Are we still doing the hoses, Chief?
Well, I had, if you remember before, we had put that into the small equipment items, and that got cut last year. So we stopped. We didn't have the money last year to buy the hoses. I put the $5,000 back in this year to try to get back on the program of doing the hoses.
Wait, where did we cut it?
And I believe we did.
It's my little pet peeve. Is it in the...
Small equipment being small equipment.
We don't have small equipment line item.
Minor equipment replacement, 6648.
All right, so we allocated 17.5 last year, so I'm on page. I don't see minor equipment.
It's not.
Page 13.
Why am I not? Minor equipment is
Third from the bottom.
66,
Third from the bottom.
6648.
Page 15. Yeah, from 13 to 20.
So is that where your hoses are?
It's all the small equipment, the saws, the saw blades, the other items that we need, and
Oh, I see.
we had put an additional 5,000 in to try to at least buy some hose each year to stay ahead of it, but that got cut out last year, so.
So vehicle parts.
We had to buy some hose, so we did buy it out of that account, but we weren't able to buy a load of hose to stay ahead of it.
Wait, I'm getting all lost here. 6648. I'm looking on page 15.
No,
Page 13.
3 up from the bottom.
Ah, that's why. God.
we took that away from you last year, huh?
No, we didn't.
I,
We did not. It was 13,000. We had allocated 17.5. So,
Taxpayers took it.
The petition is done? Okay, my
Okay, so-
apology to the community then.
not.
that didn't sound like something.
Falsely accusing you.
17.5.
Right, so the 17.5 had hoses in it, and the 20 grand has hoses in it.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Well, they're expensive, and, replacing them on a continual basis makes sense rather than,
Slightly necessary.
yeah,
Can we move to ambulance? I mean, that's a big item, so I understand about hoses, but let's concentrate on the
well,
big
once we
stuff.
go there, we're not going to leave
Okay.
it, but that's fine.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to address Ms. Durfee's question? or-
By all means, sir.
All right. Louise, how can I help you with that?
Just describe the need, which just for the record.
Absolutely. This community depends, depends very heavily on that third-party billing to help each year. Responsible for $500-some-odd-thousand coming into the coffers for the town. It's like a business. You need to have the equipment to make it work. The workhorses of that are the ambulances. When I first got here, one of the plans I had put together was that on a rotating basis as part of the capital improvement, every 4 years we buy a new rescue. We buy one new rescue, take the oldest rescue, put it in reserve, it's a backup truck. So when the truck goes down, we're not missing a truck, we always have a truck on the line. Last 4 years, we failed to do that. We started out, we bought a truck in 2005, we bought one in 2007, we bought another one in 2011, and then we stopped. So the truck that is in the south end of town is a 2007. It's got I think 185,000 miles on it. Since July, it's been out of service 31 times for major repairs. It's 8 years old right now on the front line, or 8 to 10 years old on the front line. It's tired, it's developing a lot of electrical problems. If we stay on schedule and replace it, the truck really needs to be replaced. At least twice now, transporting critical patients to the hospitals in Mass and Rhode Island Hospital that has broken down on the road. And we've had to call either mutual aid or our own to go pick it up and continue the transport. It's in bad shape.
I would
It's tight.
appreciate if you get that one updated.
It is the truck in the south end, so just let you know that. One of the changes that have come about, we go with a little bit bigger truck. Maintenance-wise, it tends to last longer and it works better. It's easier for the mechanic to work on, it's quicker for him to do that. The cost of the truck this year has got to go up another $40,000 because of a new federal mandate for safety factors that go into it, which is a stretcher and a stretcher retention system so that it doesn't, if the truck crashed, the stretcher does not dislodge from the back of the truck. That adds $40,000, so we're looking at $285,000 for a new truck.
285.
just to add to the chief's comment, there's the anchoring system, the latching system, which is about 20. The other 20 of that 40 comes from the fact that the system that anchors is a power-assisted lift stretcher. So we're increasingly, America has gotten heavier on its feet. Mild understatement. But so how do you transport a patient who weighs over 300 pounds without injury to the firefighters and all the rest of it? The power-assisted lifts will, on their own, pick the patient up, and you slide the latching system into the back of the ambulance, it locks itself into place, and transport is ready. So the demos on these, you see one very small, diminutive person lines up the stretcher, plugs it into the back, green lights signal that it's okay, and off it goes. Now, that doesn't get you up and down stairs and grades in people's yards, but it gets you safely to the point of picking the patient up and putting them in the back of the ambulance.
Which reduces injuries. Yeah, because most of it's lifting and twisting is where a lot of the injuries come from. So it is something to help with reduction of injuries, we hope.
That $61,000 is what, 25%? Is that a 4 payment? 5 payment?
I'm not sure what the treasurer had worked on that.
Okay.
Five.
So that'll be added here, it'll be 1st of,
At the risk of making what the former mayor of Providence would call a fatade here, with the system we use for financing capital, when we have the overall conversation about the entire capital budget, would be the more appropriate place that the treasurer can be here and back me up. I've asked the treasurer to look for alternative means for financing purchases like ambulances, because it doesn't make any sense to me that the useful life of the equipment and the life of the note is contemporaneous. Really, it doesn't make any sense to finance things that way. So she's looking at a number of options. The one that's most palatable at the moment is to use our cash float from our revenue side in a passbook loan style arrangement with Bay Coast. To basically lend ourselves the money at about 50 to 75 basis points over what they're paying us to hold it, and just allow us to buy equipment cash. Now, what will that mean? You'll still have to put money in the capital budget to replenish that, but it becomes saving after saving after savings, because how much interest do we pay on an ambulance on a 5-year note when it's a $289,000 piece of equipment? Comes out to, I have to do math, I'll be all over the place, depends on what interest rate. We look at 3.5% is where we're going to borrow. It would be 13,000 or so a year saved in interest.
If you say they're bringing in 500,000 in revenues, then why can't you use that to buy
Another excellent option.
That's what we want to do as a resolution.
So, you guys being the town of Tiverton, have thought about some of these things before, and I think you had past budget committee members who were adamant that these funds should go to the general fund.
Yep.
Fair enough. I don't entirely agree with that, because if we were buying ambulances and replacing them in a timely fashion, we'd save all the interest.
Right.
Right? If you had any extra money, what might you do? You might add a part-time FTE so we could actually get more money from rescue building, because right now we have unrealized potential. It becomes this positive reinforcing system that just yields more and more revenue to the town and less expense. The chief's punchline, and I don't know though, as of November, so Rescue 1 has been broken down 31 times to now, from July 1 to now. But as of the middle of November, it's only part of the time period. We had already spent $12,230 some odd dollars on repairs. And Paul has spent 33 of his hours. Now, he's a salaried employee, he gets paid his wage to fix the equipment we bring in. But think of all the maintenance he didn't do on DPW vehicles, on other fire departments. So 33 hours and $12,000 worth of repairs to keep Rescue 1 on the road for one more year. And it just doesn't make...
Well, I think it's important to focus on the expense and the need, why we need to have it tonight, and then I think you're right. when we have a broader discussion about the rest of the capital items, and Denise can be here, we can discuss,
Yeah.
different
I mean,
options for how to
the
finance it,
idea
how to
of
pay for it.
the one cautionary note, because some of it has some plausible, but the authorization of financing from cash flow, I think you would need authorization through a resolution.
Yeah.
And because the treasurer does not have unlimited borrowing authority, has to be found state law, charter, or resolution. And borrowing just from the, debt incurred needs to be authorized, just as she doesn't have authorized unlimited power to invest. So I think it probably would have to be coupled with a resolution laying out the financing plan and with a limitation. So that would just, but I think it awaits a further conversation,
Yes.
just an observation.
Alex, I know what you're gonna head for, so
When
go
we
for
first
it.
started off, the plan was every 4 years replacing that rescue with the third-party billing.
Yep.
Why can't we just take X amount of dollars out of
let
it,
them
third-party billing money, and buy a rescue every 4 years?
They can
Well, because the
self-finance.
charter says that that money from the third-party billing.
Not without a
The charter is very
resolution.
specific, it
Yeah.
goes back to the
No.
general fund.
Yes.
And the solution to that problem is when we have a charter review commission,
change
take a look at that and see if that's changeable.
It comes out of the same place, so if you take it out of the third-party billing, you reduce the revenues for other purposes.
That's right,
So,
and you have to
you know,
raise the
it's
tax rate
six
to
of one, half
compensate
dozen of
for
the
it.
other.
Yeah.
It
Plus-
doesn't,
It's not free.
No, there's
nothing's
no
free.
free money.
but that's very interesting. I'm sure the rescuers
That way,
and
if there's an alternate way of doing it, it's
The one-
important to understand.
the one thing we need on
That's something.
everybody is the rescue that works.
Yes.
There's a breakdown on the way to women and infants or.
Especially if it's in the South End. I'm
Yes.
getting up there. And I'm not quit of smoking.
I'm ahead of you.
We were thinking of wheelbarrow one, just in the back of the station.
There you go.
Mr. Souza,
Been up there for a while.
Joe Souza, 49 Hancock Street, Town Council, but I'm not speaking for the Town Council, just my own personal observations. I keep in contact with Paul, the mechanic, over the years, even when I started, when I was on the Budget Committee. Every year I took the tour, I looked at the ambulances, and I tend to disagree that we need a new ambulance every 4 years. My policy was to run the tires off it, because we have a float, we have a spare ambulance, we have backup, and it's, to get the dollars out of the ambulance, very expensive, so I think we've done well. For a little bit of money we spent, it was quite a bit of money, but to keep that ambulance on the road, the last years, but now that the payment, on which one is, I'm sorry, I forgot which ambulance is, the payment is coming off now. So we're going to be, that was kind of the idea too, is as we continue to pay on an ambulance, as that fifth payment came up, we'd buy the new ambulance and keep the float in place. So I think, I don't know, I disagree that we need a new ambulance every 4 years. And this idea that somebody's going to die, I mean, brand new equipment breaks. You get water in the fuel or something like that. You never know what's going to happen. Murphy's Law follows you around. So but this year, I mean, we ran the wheels off. It's time for a new ambulance, I have to agree. So that was just all I wanted to say. And Paul has been doing a great job keeping it going. And when he can't, we have been sending it out up to be repaired. So.
Dave, what is the lifespan, the suggested lifespan of an ambulance like that? I mean, there's got to be a standard in the...
4 years.
It is 4 years.
4 years.
So you get
And in a bigger department, you go less. If it's, the city of Fall River will not run rescues for 4 years. They won't do it. There's no way they can.
Isn't it more a function of the miles and the type of miles? If you were driving a rescue in an urban environment, Fall River, Providence, New York City, that's going to be a different situation than when you have longer runs like we do. From here to, particularly if they go up to Providence, that mile isn't as tough on it as city traffic in New York City.
The rule of thumb on any emergency vehicle is whatever the speedometer reads as mileage, triple it for actual usage on the vehicle. Idle time.
Oh, I see what you mean.
So it has to run, yeah. So
That's why we're going with the heavier duty trucks
Right.
and diesels that can take that type of.
Chief, remember when you did, it was several years ago now, that you had that nice chart that showed the lifespan of the vehicles and what their condition was and a whole, do you update that, or was that just a one-time?
No, I have done it over and over.
We had that
I
last.
probably shouldn't say this year, just this year, it didn't seem like we were going in that direction, so I did not put it into the packet. I didn't want
But
to
it's-
give you more things, and if you want it, I can certainly bring that forward again for you.
It's going to be in your capital packet.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's an essential decision to
Yes.
tool for capital
Absolutely.
engineers. What's the
Okay.
lifespan, what's the length of the note? Because in some cases, we can get into a much more beneficial cycle. We can run an engine, that it would pay for 10 years on an engine, but it might be roadworthy for 20. So it spends 2 years in active service while it's being paid for, another 5 years in active service when it is paid for, and another 5 years in reserve. It's a different piece of equipment, different economics, different dynamics. So you've got 3, but you're only paying for 2 at any given time, if you're on a
Right.
healthy cycle. Ambulances are a little bit more dicey.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
I just have a comment on the comment that was made about the third-party billing.
And you are?
Dave Perry,
Thank you.
Town Councilor, 78 Bramble Way, turn it around, 02878.
And are you?
Want social security number or?
No. Are you speaking for the council?
I'm not speaking for the council, I'm
Thank you.
speaking for myself.
Thank you. Denise will be relieved.
Thank you. Just a comment that was made about the third-party billing. If we were to do that, we'd be opening up Pandora's box. And before you know it, whatever money that came out of the billing office, the billing inspector's office, he would want to keep. And whatever came out of the treasurer's office, she would want to keep.
Barbara?
Harbor Master, it all has to go back to the general fund. And that's the way it should be.
Thank you.
It all goes to the bottom line. I think Louise said it.
That's an opinion.
It all goes, it's my opinion, it all goes back to the bottom line.
Well, I happen to
You
agree.
pay for it no matter which way.
In this particular
One way or
instance, I happen to agree with Mr. Perry, because, believe me, the Harbor Commission will be the first one up there
Then let us vote.
explaining about the income from those moorings
Right.
and how they should get a chance to keep it, trust me.
Thank you.
I want to.
My only addition I would like to add, and I know you've kind of talked this to death, my only addition to make is, from a business perspective, I need to have the equipment to be able to bring you the revenue. If I don't have the equipment, the trucks aren't running, they're breaking down, I don't have the things I need to make it work, I either have to farm out my work, outsource it to someone else, which is mutual aid. When it goes mutual aid, we don't get that money. It does not come to us.
It's important.
So I'm just saying, if we want to look like, and run like a business, we got to look at it from a business perspective.
You have to have a plan and you have to stick to it.
And that's the point, we had a plan and we kind of got away from it. I understand why, but let's try to.
Alex can fill in for me here. The condition of the Crandall Road station.
We have the north wall is crumbling,
I mean, it's
and the roof is leaking.
nice and convenient to be able to take a shower and walk along the wall,
It makes it easy.
you know.
Saves on water.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't do much for morale and the life of the building. Something needs to be done with that, and Alex can talk to it.
You can see through the cracks.
The way I feel about it, we got the School of Architecture across the river. You got a gentleman that sat on the budget committee with us, Phil Marks, who is the head of the architectural department at New England Tech. And a couple of times he offered to do work for us. And I was thinking, rather than get into the mess that we did with this town hall, where you walk in the building and walk down the hill, when you go to put the center beam in, it's 6 feet too short.
Don't supposed to tell anybody that.
Let's find out those schools will help us out. Let them do a study over there and come back with some idea what we can do with that building. But get it done right.
Matt had asked me to get together with the building inspector, but we keep missing, our times just keep going in opposite directions. He's back next week, and I want to try to get him to go over there and take a look at it with me and whoever else wants to come over there, but even if it's a simple
You got a crack
solution.
that
Hold on a
runs down the
second.
building.
Hold on a
That's all it
second.
is.
Hold on a second. If it's a simple solution, and there may be a simple solution to it, I don't know.
I don't know.
One has been mentioned to me, whether it'll work or not, I don't know for sure, because that's not my expertise. But one way or another, if we're gonna keep that station for a while, that has got to get fixed.
Is that Station 3 that I'm seeing the capital line items for?
Yes, Crandall Road,
Recommended
Bliss
both
Corners.
the roof and the exterior wall, no matter what the cost is, but both of those are recommendations by the administrator, and I assume that the council has looked at that or not.
That's critical to me. We have some critical things going on, but that one is just, it's a disaster waiting to happen. And in an area, in a location that you can't afford to have a disaster that shuts down a building. And that's what that one is leading to, I think.
I mean, I will say, my guys do an awful good job with the maintenance money that we have, station maintenance. We try to take care of 3 stations, cleaning supplies, materials, everything else.
That's beyond
They do a great
station.
job of it, and I just want everybody to understand that this is beyond what I can do out of maintenance. I can't, there's no way I can.
That's not a maintenance item.
Right, absolutely, I just want to throw that out there.
Okay.
That was a maintenance item, though, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, that may be.
And that's the point that I wanted to bring out
The
about
council has already approved
Yeah.
whatever
Those
the
two items.
amount may change, but they have approved both the exterior and the roof on Station 3.
We already did capitals.
Yeah.
Well, that's not necessarily a roof issue.
No, it's the exterior wall.
That's right. That's in yours?
Yes, it is an exterior wall.
Okay.
and-
The wall is a symptom of a roof problem.
Yes.
So you have
Yeah.
roof design issues. The
Yes.
roof
To fix both.
Yes,
Pitch to the
Yeah.
wall of the building in front.
that's right.
Which, I grew up on a farm, we didn't do stuff like that, so I don't know how this happened, but, so one suggestion has been, we change the geometry.
Right.
To make the water run off in the other direction.
Right.
With lumber and additional
Yeah.
roofing material. It's the best idea I've heard to this point.
That does not obviate the need to,
The wall is done, the
To-
wall's gonna be fixed.
yeah, that obviate the need of the damage that's already been done, but that's the fix to it, but you still have to get in there and redo those walls and the roof and so on. That thing is just, I'm afraid that one's gonna come up and bite us in the ass if we don't do something about
It's
it.
a cinder block wall, it's saturated with water.
Yep.
That's what I said,
It might be a easy fix.
the School of Architecture.
Might not be.
With the class door project.
You don't know
No,
until you start the
until you start
demo.
tearing it apart. And then you go, surprise, you
Sometimes we
get a lot of
take-
happy birthday parties. Okay, but I just think that that's one, I wanted to bring it up, obviously, it's on, seems to be, everybody knows about it and knows about it well, so, but I can't stress enough how much that thing needs to get done.
Can I please, Mr. President,
Yes,
just
sir.
1 minute? What I was trying to say was, I know I'm going back in the past, but 20 years ago, if the gutter was fixed on that building, it wouldn't be looking what it is now. It leaked for 20 years inside the wall, and I personally complained to the maintenance guy who used to be here about it for 5 or 10 years. But the Crandall, East Road, there the other day, I'm looking at the back of the building, and I'm looking through a crack, and I can see the sunlight shining inside. That crack has been in that building for a few years now. We have a maintenance department now that's in pretty good order. They can do, that's a simple repair. Somebody unfortunately went up there with painter's caulk instead of using a decent caulking, the $8 tube stuff, and go in and fill it in with urethane caulk, and then paint the back of the building. Simple things like that. But this whole winter, water has been leaking inside of the block and freezing and making the crack bigger, and the water's coming inside over the top of a window.
Jeez.
All right, now, I see this stuff and I say, we have a maintenance department. But I think, I don't know, I was gonna try to suggest this later on in the budget season, if we could do it, is to get one more additional guy on with some talent in roofing, a handyman guy, on for the summer, 3 months, that can come in and start doing some of the small roofing. You look at the Public Works garage over Paul's office. It's a black tarp with fairing holding the tarp down. That's his roof. It's needed a roof for 12 years. There's a black tarp over the roof, over his maintenance office, with fairing to hold the tarpaulin down. So, those are simple fixes that we could do in-house by just hiring a seasonal man. And now we have a decent maintenance department that can manage the man hours. I think we can, I'd be willing to push for that in the budget, because we can get a lot done in-house, and these things can be taken care of before they turn into Crandall Road.
When does the council discuss DPW?
Next week.
Well, there you go. You're on the council.
There's your time. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right with
Can
maintenance.
address it.
No, but you're absolutely right with maintenance, because you defer it, because it's the easiest thing to defer, because you don't notice any immediate decline in
But for
production or anything, but
that really
after
is a council discussion.
a time, but bring it up, you're at the council.
I was bringing it, I was addressing it because I think it sounded like a decent idea.
Yeah.
You guys said
Without committing the budget committee to anything, I think it's a good idea to bring it up,
Yeah.
okay? Those things need to be brought up, some way, shape, or form, when they're, I mean, I don't know what the process is within the town, who that goes to, who you take it to, who's in charge of maintenance, whatever, but when you say things like that as a town councilman, I would think you'd bring it up.
Yeah.
You don't get it done if it's not brought up. So, but,
It's funny you should say that, Mr. Chairman. You've opened that door now.
I thought you, weren't you done?
Yes, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So let's finish the conversation about Station 1. This is a request to replace the heating systems at Station 1. And, I'm guessing that we're getting 2 more quotes this week, and we're gonna sharpen our pencil and probably bring this number down.
Station 1 being East Road?
Station 1 is East Road.
East Road.
Okay.
But this is one of those comic relief moments. So,
Can we
I
all-
had assumed that the hot water heater was there for the domestic hot water service in the bathroom, and that the tankless heat from the ancient boiler was circulating heat the way the type of boiler works.
So now you're about to tell us that that's not true.
That's not true. So, this fascinates me. This is kind of like Star Trek. This is Scotty making the ship go after it's been hit by like 1,000 laser beams. The hot water heater is the storage tank for the hot water heated up by the boiler. So it's an additional circulator tank. So the circulator tank is pulling water out of the hot water heater and putting it into the system, which is probably the most, I just talked about growing up on the farm, we didn't do stuff like this. So in the winter, maybe that's one thing, but in the summer, when the boiler clicks to heat the water and the water's gonna come up to temp and then shut the boiler off, the bloody thing runs and heats all 40 cameras. It's very inefficient. It's terrible.
we're
So
talking-
I'm trying to fix it.
You're talking about Station 1?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Believe it.
So anyway, you have a 20,000 item to do something
Yeah,
about
it's
that.
probably gonna come down, but we're gonna need a boiler that has sufficient.
And you remember that, from that station, that was a boiler last year, we had to have emergency repairs. Well, luckily Valcott came in and fixed it. It cracked in the middle of the heating system, and luckily they were able to get it back, or else we would have had to. The only other thing I can say as far as heating systems go, we have replaced the other 2 heating stations, the other 2 stations, and we have seen significant savings in our heating costs. Astronomical savings because of that. We went to natural gas up north, and a new heating system on Crandall Road has dropped our bills tremendously. So now that, a couple other things I need to bring forward, and I haven't had a chance to vet these before the council. Again, back with the rescues, all of our rescue billing is electronic, all of our medical reports are electronic. all that data is transferred to the hospitals and to the state through the medical, the computers that we have on the rescues. We got those with a grant back in 2009. We've had issues with them that they've crashed, and we've had to beg, borrow, and steal. The IT people we have for the computers basically tell us, we're not able to fix them anymore. If they go down, you're losing all your medical data that's on them. These are the ones that are carried in the rescues, taken to the patient's side, patient captures their signature and everything. I need to replace those, and I had requested $19,000 for new rescue computers for the medical billing for the ambulances themselves for what they do. So that is part of one of my requests. Okay. The other is, and I'm not sure, we have a rescue boat that actually does quite a bit of activity. I'm sorry?
No, it's under capital.
It would have been a capital item that I had asked for, rescue computers. The other is that on Marine 14, the boat that we have that was donated to us in behalf of Jerry Ledoux, one of our firefighters, and that boat probably does a couple hundred responses a year. The motor, because it's an older motor, the new ethanol marine gas has burned it up, that motor went bad. I've got a replacement price of replacing that of $12,000. So the boat is out of service, we can't use the boat, we're coming back. As a matter of fact, there was a marine response today out on the bay that we weren't able to respond to.
Is that in your capital request?
It was in my capital request, I'm not sure, probably has not come forward. But again, I'm just bringing them forward.
I triaged it, I cut the capital request from $725,000 to $350,000, $60,000. It didn't make the cut. I'm not gonna argue whether or not we need it, it's just what can we...
Well, we need all of those things. I think it's just a function, I mean, I don't know how the hell you prioritize it. You know, you could prioritize it with a dot board, or, I mean, well, I mean, there are...
So the council decided...
So many of those items are necessary, but,
Yeah, and again, I'm just, and I understand everybody has a job to do, and I have to bow to, everybody else's wish, but again, I'm just trying to bring forward.
hey, if you don't promote the thing...
If I don't put it out, it's not gonna get there. Right.
The seriousness of that issue to me is that a life-saving issue? Is that a matter of life or death to have that boat? I mean, is that in the same category as having ambulances that run, and so...
In my opinion, yes.
I don't know if that's the only rescue boat we have, if that's what it is, a rescue boat.
It is.
Okay. I don't know, I know, you sit there and you have to make decisions.
The water, you'd like to see that coming?
And, the amount of water we've got around here and
And the other couple of items that I put in, I have, I'm not sure if they made them through again, the Apex did, okay. I have applied for a grant. Several years ago, we had put in extra money to start trying to buy and replace Scott air packs, the breathing apparatus that our firefighters use. I've applied for an assistance to firefighter grant, which is about $250,000, $260,000. The co-share on that would be about $19,000 for our portion of it. Now, I don't know when that's going to come through, but that is a request item I had put in also for that.
The administrator sent that along.
Okay, but I'm just, again, I just want to make sure so that you understand, without the grant, without the co-share, I can't, if I get awarded the grant, I can't take the grant. So.
Radio system repairs for $50,000 didn't make the cut. Replace car 1 for $40,000, didn't make the cut.
Well, my car's only got $240,000 on it.
Oh, well, shoot.
Car 3 is out of service right now, that has 100 and something on it.
when that crap's out, take the motor out of it and use it on the boat.
There you go, it's a good idea.
So the radio system repairs are,
I asked for them, but I can understand, there are priorities. It's still operating, it's been operating for a while, it just, at some point in time, we're gonna need to put some attention to it.
okay.
Man, is there I think I saw one, but I really don't remember. A 5-year maintenance plan that takes that, let's say that's $700,000 and allocate that out over
Yes.
5 years.
So that's what I'm...
That's what you're thinking from, okay. Because I thought I had seen that somewhere along the line.
Yeah, now what I described to you is that they're like puzzle pieces.
Yes.
How do you fit them all above a certain line and out only so far? And that's what I'm struggling to do,
And it doesn't matter what you do with it, you'll be wrong.
Oh, well, I'm used to that.
So, you know, I mean, it's just that way.
Yeah, I'm going back and forth with DPW for their portion of this, and that's why you haven't seen the chart yet, but I want to see, the draft is looking like
Yeah,
this.
because I thought I remembered seeing it.
Right, so it's gonna,
Oh, that's
It's gonna
good.
flow
Does anybody
like
else want to hold up a copy of it so I can look?
so can you see the 6.5 from there?
No, but I can see it on Denise's.
So is your expectation to have capital night with the budget committee, capital night with the council and the budget
We've already
committee?
done capital, so I thought you guys were following us, but I thought tonight was your...
No, that's okay.
Okay, so we should schedule capital night.
Yes, well, I mean, I'm working on the narrative that Ms. Cook asked for.
Yep.
So I want to make sure I'm completely prepared, but I'm, what, 10, 12, 15 slides deep into this? So there's your beneficial cycle, that's what it should look like.
Okay.
And then
So
each
maybe towards the
individual
end.
project will have an error.
Right, so
In much of the capital items, we've at least discussed tonight, so.
Well, it's good to have the chief here and give you more color than I can.
Okay.
I just bring props.
I mean, I hate to say, my guys will do whatever they need to do. They will work, but if it's not for me to advocate for them, they will make it work. We'll find, by hook or by crook, we'll figure something out to make it
Well,
work.
that's fine, but...
We do need to start addressing some things down the
Bubble gum
road.
and baling wire.
It works. Duct tape is good.
For a while, it will, absolutely.
Yeah.
And what happens then is, those just keep going. They keep going, and keep going. And you just wrap up, you guys just chew more bubble gum and use it, and you go buy some more double bubble and use it.
Gorilla tape is getting pretty good right now,
That's why I said
too.
last week, don't have another building under our purview, because we're not even fixing the buildings that we have.
That's-
Goes back to that. We add on, you haven't fixed the
Well,
ones
you
that
know
we...
what, it's a tough nut to crack, because somehow you have increasing costs of running the town, and you gotta get some money aside for maintenance, and how do you do that? How do you do that without raising it for taxes?
Well, before we discuss,
But anyway, we're getting a little bit off the track here. And I can tell when Louise leans back in her chair. She's had enough.
I can keep our interest, though, if you want to go back to old business. Are you done with, I just want to talk
I'm
about
done with
police
him.
pension.
Is everybody else done?
I would be
So,
glad at any point in time to
No,
answer
I
any more
said I am.
questions.
Does anybody else got anything more for the chief?
No.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're dependent on everybody else to pull us out of the water. Only a couple of years ago, before the administrator got here, and I don't think you people remember it, we lost 5 kids the other side of the railroad bridge. The Portsmouth had to pull us out of the water. We don't want to do nothing by ourselves.
Okay.
Valid point, Alex.
Thank you,
On that
Chief.
note, thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Old business?
police pension fund. Let me give you an update. So, I have forwarded to your chairman today a letter that I sent to Suzanne Greshner, who is the chief at the Municipal Finance Division at the state. Because I've received the response back from the actuarial firm comparing a 100% ARC to overfunding the ARC. And before the conversation really continues on that vein, I want the Office of Municipal Finance to instruct us as to whether or not the financial improvement or the funding improvement plan is open for negotiation and change or not, because they sign off on it and they enforce it. If we don't follow the strictures of that plan, we could lose state aid. Technically, that's true. I don't know if they'd actually do it. I don't want to test that. So I sent her all the materials, how much the town has funded since the FIP was entered into, and the 2 actuarial models, one at $700,000 through 2020, and one with a 100% funding of the ARC, no more than that, starting this fiscal 17, the budget.
503,
508.
508.
508,000?
Yeah. 508,000. So, what's fascinating to me is to see that we still reach fully funded status, which would be clearing 70% within a relatively near time frame, because the town has front-loaded so much.
Right.
You pay the piper at about 15 years into the FIP, where you would be paying well over $1 million that year instead of in the $800,000 range. So that 200 grand you save early on, at the end of the amortization table, it comes back to bite you as the account is actually 100% funded and is closed. Because it's after that big year, you have 2 small years and then the amortization period ends. So that's what I've asked her for. What is her legal authority? What can she tell us about whether or not this is even an option for the town? Because the more I stare at the health insurance number, the more frightened I get for next year.
And expectation is we'll hear from her next year or in 2 weeks?
No, I'm gonna, there's people you grow up with. I mean, I'm not a dinner party guest of the Greshner household, but I've known Suzanne for a very long time. She worked with Peter Schaefer for years at the League, and so I'm expecting the courtesy of a reply, because she's good like that.
She was at RIPEC.
She was at RIPEC as well.
RIPEC before she went to municipal.
And she was on the Budget Commission in Woonsocket when I was department head.
Good, thank you for asking. That was,
Yep, because we're at 67% as of June.
Yes, correct.
And the 503 would certainly help substantially with some of the priorities.
would it be possible to get a copy of that actuarial report with the actual, with the...
Yeah, so if the chairman chooses not to forward it to you, I could always send it to you.
Oh, you've got it.
I have it.
It's jeSouza@cox.net, right? Yeah, that's you. Okay, we got it. But I'll distribute it.
He's technology.
I'm going down my ear. I'm following the chain of command.
It's in the inbox. Forward it on.
All right.
Mr. Perry?
Dave Perry, Broadway. You don't need my phone number? No. I'm also on the police pension plan, and I did receive that report yesterday. My only concern, Ms. Durfee, is that 508 is our payment, but we're paying out 711 to retirees. And I've always said we should not pay out more than what we're putting in.
That's right. However,
And that would keep us above, and I know what you're going to say.
Okay.
The 503 plus the contribution.
yeah, the close. I'm not saying 503 or 508
508.
is the final figure,
No.
but it could be something less.
I wouldn't want to go less than the 711 we're going to pay out. I mean, the 7...
That's at least a talking point, because when you look at the budget, you don't want a 4% increase in the budget either.
No.
So I think there's probably got to be some areas of compromise, maybe shading, nothing dramatic, but
Because it does keep us, and I think Matt's correct, I think we only go to 803 now, and that's like in the middle of the, closer to the end. And then we drop off very low, and then we just drop right off. So, by funding it like we have been, has kept us ahead of the game. We don't want to be 100% funded, I totally agree.
yeah, and some of the actuarial assumptions in there are interesting. The turnover rate is really fairly short. So, and those play into the,
Absolutely. I mean, you look at the age of some of our police officers also.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a few that could retire if they wanted to.
But, Mr. Perry, I think your imperative that we don't want to pay out more than we take in is a pretty rock solid imperative.
At least break even.
Yeah, that's right. Because if you go across,
Well, that's what we did for years,
yeah, and here we are.
and here we are.
hey, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, now we are.
But if you change the formula, you're not going to be. I agree with Dave.
Well, let's look at the whole package.
New business?
Any more old business? New business?
Well, this
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, all opposed, so voted.